Shalom Alechem, Erev Tov. Good evening. It's almost evening. Last Tuesday we were together, and you gave me an opportunity to share and to grieve, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciated being able to do that with you, especially since I was feeling all of the things that I was feeling in Morenu. To know that you were there for me meant the world to me. Our HaShamayim, in their wisdom, instituted for us levels of mourning. There's the day of passing, maybe even the day until the burial. There's the Shiva, which is broken up into two halves. The first 3 days and the last 4 days. Rabbis tell us the first 3 days, maybe people don't even remember what happens to them in the first 3 days of Shiva. And after the Shiva, you have a Shloshim. You have 30 days. After the Shloshim, there's 11 months. 11 months, there's 12 months. And after that, we leave the mourning for once a year. Once a year. And this is intended to wean us away from mourning. Rabbi Yonatan writes in the laws of mourning that somebody who does not mourn at all is a cruel person. What do you mean you don't mourn? It's a way of life. Of course, it's a way of life, but at the end of the day, it's still supposed to hurt us. On the flip side, somebody who mourns too much is a fool, because it's life. What do you expect to happen? There has to be somewhere in the middle where a person learns how to wean, and then going forward, what do we take away from the life that continues to cause the Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of the righteous, as a blessing? What memory are we walking away with? And when I thought of everything I shared last week, I thought of all the things that we lost. And I figured that today, a week later, perhaps I could share a little bit of what we have. What do we gain? Yeshayahu the prophet famously says the following words. ותהי האמת נעדרת, ושר מרע משתולל, וירא אדוני ויראה בעיניו כי אין משפט. Truth became lost, became missing. And the people who stopped doing evil things were treated like the crazy people in the world. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw this, and it was evil in his eyes, because he saw that there is no mishpat, there is no justice in the world. How could you live in a world where emet doesn't exist, where truth doesn't matter? And the people that are truthful and do that which is right, they're the crazy people. And the normal people, they're the ones who are doing all that is evil in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when I think about this pasuk, it reminds me of the teaching of our Chachamim in Masechet Sanhedrin. Our rabbis want to understand, what does it mean? Mai vatihi ha'emet ne'ederet. What does it mean that truth is missing, it's lacking, it's lost? Where did it go? What happened to it? And our Chachamim say, Amar de Rav, the house of Rav taught, Milamed shen'aset adarim adarim veholechet la. Truth became adarim adarim. Truth became broken up into groups. It dispersed and it scattered. Truth disappeared. Our Chachamim are having a hard time here. Vatihi ha'emet ne'ederet. If someone is missing, are they here? It means they're missing. The word in Hebrew, vatihi, means that it is. The word pasuk says there is truth, but it's ne'ederet. It's missing. So Chachamim are bothered, is there truth or is there not truth? And if there's truth, how is it missing? And if it's missing, how do you say the words vatihi ha'emet? There is truth that is still here. Morenu HaRav Yaakov Peretz always taught two different understandings of this pasuk. Two. I'm going to tell you the first one now, and the second one later. The first understanding of this pasuk, and I'm reading from his book, Haemet, Yosher, V'Tzedek, even though he mentions this a few times in his book on the laws of Yom Kippurim, he mentions it also. All of HaRav Peretz's books are called Emet Yaakov, the truth of Yaakov. And a copy here of his will that he left. HaRav Peretz's will, every step of it is about Emet. Everything. Everything, everything, everything. From forgiving all of his debts and paying them all back, to making sure that there's no one in the world who'll be upset with him, to even signing his wife at the bottom of his will, that she forgives him for anything that he ever did to her, with a complete heart. She signed her name on that will. That will was signed on the 16th of Av, Tafshin Samech, which is exactly the day that he passed away, years before. But on the same day. It's so much tender, I can show it to you. Says HaRav Peretz, וביאור תוכן הכתוב כך. Let's explain this pasuk this way. שבעקבתא דמשיחה, that at the end of days, before the Mashiach comes, שיהיו ניסיונות קשים מאוד. There will be very difficult trials that the world will go through. אמנם, nonetheless, יהיו אנשי אמת. There will be people of truth in those difficult days. וינסו להתהלך ולהתנהג בה בחיי היום-יום. And they will try to walk on the path of truth in their day-to-day life. אבל הלחץ החברתי, but the social pressure, שהשקר והחיצוניות שולטים בה בריש גלי, בחוצפה. Social pressure. Society is ruled by lies and by external, superficial values that rule over society with chutzpah, with brazenness. יגבר על אנשי האמת, will overcome the people of truth. ולא יוכלו להחזיק מעמד בדרך האמת. They will not be able to survive living on a path of truth. ויקנאו, and they will give in. ויסתלקו ממנה, and they will end up leaving the truth. Because it's so hard to be a truthful person in a world full of lies. וכל כך יתרבו הנכנעים והמסתלקים מן האמת, and so many people will be abandoning truth so frequently, עד שיהיו כעדרים עדרים שולחים להם. It will look like flocks of people. נעדר means lost, but also eder means flocks, sheep. The amount of people that will be flocking away from the truth as sheep in a flock. They will be so numerous that it will look like everyone is running away from the truth. And like HaRav Peretz says, וכמו שקרה בדורנו, like has happened in our generation. In our generation, truth, it's not just a rare commodity, it's not a commodity at all. Nobody wants it. And when you ask people and you talk to people about things that are true, there's an aversion to truth. You crazy people still believe in that stuff? Oh, you think that's the way you're going to build a business like that? You're never going to be rich. Oh, you think that's the way you're supposed... How many Shalom Bayit classes I'm going to go to? That the foundation of the class is you should lie to your spouse for the sake of saving your marriage. It says in the Talmud, no? What kind of idiot gave such a Shalom Bayit class? You're telling me the way we're going to fix a relationship that is struggling is by lying to each other? But that's the kind of Jewish world you're in. You can imagine what the world outside of our world looks like? Sheker. It's dancing. And emet, everyone is too afraid. It's impossible almost to live your life in an amiti way, in a truthful way, full of integrity. We're not living in a world that is conducive to that. Not in the Jewish world and not outside of the Jewish world. And this teaching, I think, was the basis of everything that Morenu HaRav taught us. Everything. Everything. One, truth is the most important thing in the world, period. The seal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emet. The Hebrew alphabet starts with Aleph, ends with Taf, in the middle, Mem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything, literally created the world with emet. The Torah, Shonatan Lanu Torato, Torat emet. A Torah of truth he gave us. And yet, at the same time that emet is so important, HaRav Peretz always taught us to be conscious of the fact that we live in a world that nobody wants emet. That the people who are supposed to want emet don't want emet. How much more so the people who don't know that it's important to want emet? And the third part of that, so what? So what if nobody wants emet and they're going to make your life miserable for having emet? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because, like I told Avinoam today, Rabbeinu HaRambam taught that if 1,000 people lie about something, it does not make it the truth. And if 1,000 people argue with one person who's telling the truth, it doesn't make that person wrong. Emet is emet is emet, period. And as difficult as it is to live a life of emet, it is also our task. That's why we're here. It's our purpose to be the most amiti, the most truthful we can possibly be. And obviously, when I say truth, I'm talking about truth between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, us on our Jewish path, us on our path of learning Torah. And if I had to think of all the Torah that I learned from HaRav Peretz, that framework that he built for us is the framework of emet. Is it true? Is it not true? If it's true, it doesn't matter who said it. If it's not true, it doesn't matter who said it. The only thing that matters is the emet, the emet, the emet, period, over and over again. And what if everyone's going to treat you like you're crazy? So what are you supposed to do? I should become a liar because everybody else doesn't know what truth looks like? And so I thought today I would share with you a few true teachings of Torah from HaRav Peretz and how they tie into the legacy that we have here at Kehillat Shaar HaShamayim and the broader Shiviti family. In Masechet Avot, our rabbis tell us, Heve az kenamer. We should be brazen, bold, like leopard, panther, cheetah, tiger, some kind of cat. I'm sure there's some Nechamim who know exactly namer in English. I know namer in Hebrew. You should be brazen like a namer. Bold, az, takif, lo nirta, says HaRav Peretz. You should never hold back. You should be, you know how the lion attacks the tiger. Have you ever seen them attack? They jump. They don't care. They're fierce. In Tehillim, David HaMelech Alav Hashalom tells us, Vaikanu leMoshe b'machane le'Aharon kedosh Adonai. The Jewish people were jealous. They were angry at Moshe Rabbeinu in the camp. They were also jealous and angry at Aaron. Do you remember why they were jealous and angry at Moshe? What were the Jewish people's complaint at Moshe? What? Nepotism, that was one of their complaints. They had a good complaint about Moshe Rabbeinu. It says b'machane, in the camp. Why is Moshe Rabbeinu so aloof? He's so separate from us. He thinks he's too good for us. The complaint of Moshe Rabbeinu was, who does he think he is? He's so much better than us? Stays away from us? Fine, then what was their complaint on Aaron? Why is he so involved in our life? Why is he so close to us? Why does he care about? Why is his nose in our business all the time? HaRav Peretz, when he tells us pasuk, he wrote the following. Kluma, you should learn from here. Ma sheyaseh ha'adam medabrim alav ra. No matter what you're going to do in your life, there will be people who speak bad about you. Im yaseh kach o lehefech. It doesn't matter what you should do, and therefore, says HaRav Peretz, lo lihitpa'el me'abikoret shel bnei adam. Don't be moved by the incorrect criticisms of other people. If it's a good criticism, you should worry about it. But if they're upset at you for doing what's right, who cares? You're doing what's right. It doesn't matter what they feel about it. They were upset at Moshe when he was Moshe. They were upset at Aharon when they were Aharon. When he was Aharon. On that note, HaRav Peretz made a manual about 20 years ago. It started off as notes. I have the original notes, but it later became a book. It's a manual for rabbis. After he wrote books on halakha, he made a book for rabbis. Orchot HaRav Kehillat. I'm actually on the cover of the book. I'm not. The guy in the front took my seat, and so that I always came late. Nothing new. Yeah, I came late, so he took my seat, and I sat here, but I still made the picture. In this book, you have Chachamim from Florida. I see here from Brazil. I see here from Europe. Chief rabbis, I'm here. HaRav Peretz has 2 chapters, not one. Rabbi Levi Moro in his Hesped for HaRav Peretz, he wrote that in the manual for rabbis, HaRav Peretz has not 1 but 2 chapters on proper and ethical behavior for Talmid Chacham. It was very important for HaRav Peretz that we also are good people, not just Torah scholars. That we're good people who do the right thing. And in his chapter to rabbis on their task of dealing with the people, he writes, Talmid Chacham Amiti, a true Torah scholar, לא מתבטל ולא נכנע לפני אופנת הזמן ואנשי העולם. A true Torah scholar who has his head screwed on straight doesn't ever bow down or change their principles because of the blowing winds of social norms and values that exist in the world. בענייני תורה ומצוותיה. When it comes to the Torah and mitzvot, we follow the Torah and the mitzvot. The fact that out there they change their mind about whether or not we should be following Torah and mitzvot doesn't matter to us. איננו מוותר ואיננו מתעלם משום הלכה. He doesn't ignore any halacha. שהוויתור אסור בה. You're not allowed to just forget about halachot. הוא תקיף בדעתו ונאמן להשם יתברך ולתורתו. He is takif. He is fierce in his opinions and is loyal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his Torah. וקנאי לכבוד השם יתברך בדברים שצריכים לקנות, אפילו בדברים שקשים ומרים. And he is a zealot for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even when it's difficult to do so. And מקור קנאותו, why are we so tough and strict and harsh? הוא כבוד הבורא ותורתו. It's out of respect to God and his Torah, not כבוד עצמו, not because of ourselves. And we must behave always b'midat ha'chesed ve'avat am Yisrael. Always to love the Jewish people. Sometimes when you love the Jewish people, you have to know how to say the things that are true. How you say them can be kind. But you cannot compromise on that which is the truth. Even though the generation tells you that you should. It doesn't matter. We must do that which is right. Today, before HaRav Peretz passed away, maybe the last year or so, I was with him a few times this last year. HaRav Peretz gave me this little booklet that his son, Rabbi Pinchas Peretz, put together. Stories and anecdotes from HaRav Peretz. Today he sent me an updated version. Gemara Masechet Ta'anit says the following. Kol Talmid Chacham, any Talmid Chacham, she'eno kashe kabarzel, who is not tough like steel, like iron, barzel. Yeah. Eno Talmid Chacham, he's not a Talmid Chacham. If you're not strong, you're not tough, you're not a Talmid Chacham. This bothered HaRav Peretz because we know Talmid Chacham is supposed to be humble, supposed to be kind, supposed to love people. So what does it mean that he should be tough and strong and strict? So Rabbi Pinchas wrote down what his father said. Ubia Harav, HaRav Peretz explained, שהנהגותיו הטובות והמיוחדות קבועות. שאינו מוותר על הנהגותיו הטובות בכל מצב ובכל טרדה, אלא קבועות הן כברזל. חזקות וקבועות. It's the good things about you. You don't have to be a mean person to people. It doesn't say that any Talmid Chacham who's a jerk is a Talmid Chacham. But the things that you have decided are good and the way you should live your life, nothing in the world should ever get you to change your mind. It doesn't matter that you don't like it. It doesn't matter that my friends don't like it. It doesn't matter my family doesn't like it. It doesn't matter that the coworker. If I've decided this is the right thing, it's a good character trait about me. Why should I change it? I'll give you an example. We once had a guy make Aliyah to the Yeshiva from Canada. And HaRav Peretz told him it's the greatest mitzvah in the world that you did, that you made Aliyah from Canada. To live in Eretz Yisrael, is where all the Jews belong. He said, but I'm going to ask you one request, please. Don't leave all of your good midot that you have as a Canadian in Canada. We need people to import good midot to Eretz Yisrael. You should understand, HaRav Peretz was very careful never to say anything bad about Eretz Yisrael. Never. She always said in the positive. He said, people in Canada, for example, they know not to push when they get on the bus. They know not to push when they stand in line in the grocery store. They know how to say please and thank you. It would be very important to teach us here how to be Canadian while you're making Aliyah here to Israel. For HaRav Peretz, this was very important. In fact, he once told us that it's better to miss the bus than to push to get on the bus. Now, you might wonder, why would you push to get on the bus? Because you live here. You see, here when the bus comes, it probably never took a bus. When the airplane comes, and they say, we're now boarding Group A. Who goes? Group A. Which person in Group A goes first? The one who stood in line first. But in some countries, it could be that the last person in Group A pushed his way in front of the first person in Group A, stepped on his shoes, pushed his suitcase out of the way. He got first on the airplane. It could also be the guy from Group Z decided that he should be with Group A. And better than Group A, he pre-boarded. How did he pre-board? He pushed the guy out of the wheelchair, and he went himself. There are places like that. I know you may have never heard of such a thing. I'm telling you. And HaRav Peretz always told us, I would much rather my students miss the bus than to get on the bus by pushing. And I, like a student of HaRav Peretz, I was very loyal to that shita. So much so that on my third date with my wife was in the city of Tzfat. And it was Erev Shabbat. And the bus that went to Tzfat, I don't know why it didn't go to Tachana Merkazit, because it left from Shmuel HaNavi and Bar Ilan. It starts at Tachana Merkazit? No. It's a Mahadran bus, no? It starts in Tachana Merkazit? I don't know what the number was. Any case, they took me to that's why. They told me to go there because I will not catch it later. So I went to the first stop of the bus. That's why I was there. See? I knew I was there for a reason. I would never willingly go to Shmuel HaNavi in Bar Ilan. That's like... So, I went there, and the bus came. My wife was ready. She wasn't my wife then. She was waiting for me in Tzfat. It's a 3.5-hour bus ride to Tzfat. The first bus came. I didn't get on the bus. I couldn't get on the bus. I was the first person there, but I couldn't get on the bus. The whole bus, you have to understand, it's like 52 seats or something. It's not a small bus. The whole bus. The second bus. The third bus. The fourth bus was the last bus. If I don't get on that bus, I'm not getting to Tzfat for Shabbat. I got on the last bus there. I think I stood all the way there. I don't think I had a seat. I think I stood the 3.5 hours to Tzfat. I think so. All because I was there from the morning. But other people got there first. Now, my wife... How do you think my wife got to Tzfat? She was probably in the first bus. I didn't even realize it. But HaRav Peretz always taught us, you cannot be that person. You're going to be a person of emet, even if the whole world thinks you're crazy. And some of us took that lesson a little too far, in a good way. That it would be much wiser for us in our careers, speaking about this Kehillat also, if we just were normal. And we did things the way everybody else did them. But then what would we be? You know, when I was in London, they had this, what's the name of that wax museum? That one. No, so I don't know. I didn't go inside because I'm not going to pay money to go see fake people. Of fake people. You know, it's already, the real ones are fake. So the fake ones, how much more so? But you say, wow, look at all those wax people. They look so real. Now, Peretz looked at the world and he saw people living a life of lies. And why would you want to be a wax person? Why not be a real person? Don't you want to be real? And emet, where's the rabbi's kid? He doesn't stop talking. Emet on its own is a wonderful thing, but the problem is that people who are into emet can also end up being very arrogant. That's why after the word emet, he writes the words yosher v'tzedek. Righteousness and straightforwardness and righteousness. Because you have to balance those things. HaRav Peretz writes in his book to rabbis that our rabbis told us, Yehuda ben Tema omer, Heve az kenamer, v'gibor ka'ari, la'asot ratzon avicha HaShamayim. You should be bold like a leopard and brave like a lion to do the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Aseh, pa'al, do. Gale kishronotecha u'ma shechanancha Hashem yitbarach yotzreinu. Your life that you live, your number one job is to do. Stop talking. Start doing. Don't talk so much. HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks. That's what we say. Baruch omer ve'oseh. He talks and he does. A lot of people talk and they never do anything. They talk and they talk and they talk and nothing happens. Nothing changes. Nothing gets better. Do. Number one. Number two, the number one reason why we don't do things is because we're afraid of the judgment of other people. Morenu HaRav always taught that the judgment of other people doesn't matter. And what matters is that you do things that are full of integrity to who you are. You do things one way. I do things a different way. If you do things my way, you won't be yourself. If I do things your way, then it won't be good for me either. You have to do what's right for you. Ve'im zot ba'anava, al titgae, ve'al titnaseh, uvoshet panim legan Eden. A person who has humility goes to Gan Eden. You should be right always. You should do that which is truthful always. But don't be an ugly person. Don't be a mean person. Be a nice person. How many people in the world don't do all the things they know they can do because they're too afraid of what other people are going to say? And then we lose. We lose because of that. Because good people end up not doing anything. And so who does things? All the bad people. Why do the bad people do it? They don't care what you think about them. Once I was walking with my wife at night. I said, that guy's not afraid to be walking at night? I said, of course he's not afraid. He's the reason people are afraid to be walking alone at night. I mean, what is he afraid of? He's the guy who you're afraid of. The bad people, they don't care what other people say about them. It's the good people who always stop doing things because what are they going to say about me? And at a certain point in time, you have to say, it doesn't matter. Who cares? That brings me to the next teaching of HaRav Peretz that I wanted to share with you tonight. This part is important. And it's important because in the years that I've been learning Torah and therefore teaching Torah, I see how people who try to be truthful also end up being very hurtful to other people. It's almost, they go hand in hand. There's a certain intellectual snobbery that comes along with people who always want to be right. And that's a different danger. It's a different danger that other people fall into. I didn't get a chance to mention at the beginning of the Shiur. I just want to thank all the people who are responsible for setting tonight, aside from my wife, for making the food. But the families that were involved, to Baruch and Rachel, to my father and mother, to my brother Ariel and his wife Shira, to Tomer and Lisa, to Oren and Chava who left, to Abraham and Yordana, and to everyone else who was involved in mitzvah, thank you very much for being part of that. This next Torah is for you. Once I had a Tu B'Shvat meal here. Ramit, you remember that Tu B'Shvat meal? And these two Satmar Hasidim showed up. Remember that? Many years ago. These two Satmar Hasidim came. And let's say, I'm just going to say very lightly, I don't know what the common denominator between us and Satmar is. They're Jewish and we're Jewish, and that's probably it. They're working. Oh, good. Okay. They came. They needed a place for Tu B'Shvat. I don't think they were expecting this, though. I have to be honest with you. They came. And the first guy steps out of the car and he sees my wife, and she spoke to him in Yiddish, and he recognized she's Hasidish. So he looks to me and he says, what was wrong with her that her dad let you marry her? It's like, hi, I'm hosting you for dinner. So nice to have you with me. What was that? That was number one. Number two, they came upstairs And they saw all of us sitting together. And that was very, very difficult for them. Because how could men and women sit together? And I remember I told the Rabbanit, they have this little table, make for them a little table in the corner just for them. And some people got upset at me. What do you mean? That's not what we do in the Kehillat. We don't. I said, stop for a second. You see how we're sitting right now? These two Samar Hasidim are not going to come here and change our policy of how we sit in the Kehillat. But if two Jewish people came to the Kehillat for dinner and you see that they're suffering from something that you can fix, it's not a hard fix. Nobody was hurt in the process. In fact, I probably saved some of you from uncomfortable conversations. So what is it going to hurt to accommodate these two Hasidim? Who did I learn that from? From Morenu HaRav. Because together with the desire to be truthful was also the desire to be one with the rest of Klal Yisrael. To be one with the rest of the Jewish people. And that's something, by the way, you should know. I'm going to speak now personally. In this city, for example, nobody has yet ever understood. I'm not talking about you. You stay out of this conversation. I know the reputation that I have, or even that our Kehillat has, outside of this Beit Knesset. In fact, one of my students in Texas once hosted a family from San Diego. They don't know me. They moved here long after we started Shiviti. They didn't have a place for dinner. And so my student hosted them for dinner in his house. And they said, where are you from? And they told my student that they're from San Diego. San Diego, maybe you know my rabbi. I said, who's your rabbi? Yonatan Halevy. And they started cursing and screaming and shouting the horrible things that they said. He hates people. The whole community are a bunch of snobs. I realized that very, very unsophisticated people have a hard time understanding that we can believe that we're correct about something and we don't hate you. We love you very much. We'll help you if you need our help. We will accommodate your needs if we can. Just because we believe in the conviction that we have in our path is true doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Why does one have to go with the other? Because in your world, if someone is different than you, you hate them, so you project that on us? But that's not the case. That'll never be the case. HaRav Peretz writes the following. Dana, the rabbis, no, please. Sima belibcha, put in your heart, klal gadol, this foundational principle. Shekol adam nivra b'tzelem Elohim, that every human being is created in the image of God. וכלל ישראל חביבים נחשבים בנים למקום. And the Jewish people, all of them are considered the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and are therefore loved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. ולאור כלל גדול זה, and with this principle in mind, תלך להתייחס בכבוד והערכה לכל איש ישראל. Respect every Jewish person that you meet. לכל עדה, to every ethnicity, לכל קהל בישראל, every community in the Jewish people. ויזהר נא וישמר מאוד. And you should be very careful. שאל תפלה לרעה שום יהודי בגלל מוצאו, עדתו, קהלו. That you should never be prejudiced against another Jewish person because of their ethnicity, their race, the community they belong to, the background they come from. ספרדי, אשכנזי, חסיד, פרוש, מפלגה אחרת. Doesn't matter. Another political party. Doesn't matter, he says. That's not the way that we treat other people. Someone got upset at me recently. I sat somewhere. I sat with a conservative rabbi. He spoke to a big lover of Eretz Yisrael. Made a whole organization. It's not so simple, by the way, to find in certain denominations people that are standing strong with Israel. He made a whole coalition of American rabbis that stand together with the state of Israel. He's another Jewish person, the leader of Jewish people. Does he lead the Jewish people like me? Would we agree on how to run a prayer service together? We're not writing a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch together. But other Jewish people are our brothers and sisters. Ubinazot, please pay attention to this. Sheklal gadol zehu enoshi. This is a basic human value to not be prejudiced against other people. Hegioni, it's logical. Mikubal al kol haumot. Today, all the nations of the world agree with it. V'chol sheken kal v'chomer b'Yisrael. שמצווים בתורה פעמים רבות על הגרים. How much more so the Jewish people that we are commanded to love someone who has joined Am Yisrael, even though he didn't initially start with us. HaRav Peretz in his footnote, I'm not going to read it to you tonight. The time is later than I thought it would be. HaRav Peretz references us to a book called the Sefer HaBrit HaShanim. You heard of this? It's not the New Testament. Relax. Have you heard of the Sefer HaBrit? The New Testament is there. For the people that are suspecting, yeah? This one is Sefer HaBrit HaShanim. Was written by Rabbi Pinchas Eliyahu Horowitz of Vilna. He was a famous Ashkenazi Chacham, and he wrote a book that's an introduction to Rabbi Chaim Vital's Shaar Ruach HaKodesh, how to receive Ruach HaKodesh according to the Kabbalists. The Kabbalists require 2 prerequisites to receive divine inspiration, which is why, according to those people who claim to be Kabbalists and they claim to have divine inspiration, it's obvious that they don't have it. Because rule number 1 is that you have to know all of the natural sciences of the world. All of them. And therefore, and the second half is to know all the Torah and how the Torah works, how philosophy works, how different values in Torah work. So Rabbi Pinchas Eliyahu of Vilna wrote a book. And listen, some of the science here is outdated because it was written a few hundred years ago. But the book was intended to help Torah scholars master all of the different wisdoms that exist in the world. So you have here, let me see if I can find you an exciting page. You have here perhaps how thermometers work, the mercury inside of them, how you have how the globe looks at different continents where they are, how the sun, the stars, how temperatures take in, where water comes from, buildings, architecture, all kinds of things like that, all inside of the book. And the second half is, for us rabbis, the more exciting stuff, all about Judaism and different takes on Judaism. He has a whole chapter here. Rachel, you mentioned working. He has a whole chapter here on the horrible idea of Jewish people studying Torah and not working. Horrible. That's probably why nobody reads this book. Because in the yeshivot of today, this book would get burned. Aside from that, he advocates the studying of secular studies, God forbid. I remember once telling a Rosh Yeshiva, I understand you don't want the New York Department of Education giving your students curriculum because you think they're going to... What about the Jewish books that we have that teach secular studies? What's your excuse for not studying them? Why do you just want to be an idiot? Why not learn? Wisdom is wisdom, and it's beautiful. It only makes people smarter and better servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like Rabbeinu HaRambam writes. In there, he has a whole chapter on racism and how much he appreciated seeing the civilized world moving away from racism. Interestingly, he critiques the Jewish people. He says, how can it be that Sephardim and Ashkenazim still hate each other? We think we're too good for each other. We think we shouldn't pray with each other. We shouldn't marry each other. We shouldn't eat each other's food. How far does it go? Listen to a story. Once the Rabbanit and I were in Yerushalayim. And I went to my in-laws' house. And my in-laws, they left town or something. They went out of town. And so they left me their house. And I went to the store. Where do my in-laws live? In the heart of Haredi town, Yerushalayim. Mea Sha'arim Geula. I went to go buy meat there at the grocery store. And after our trip was over, there was still more meat and chicken and stuff in the freezer. I'm going to throw it away. It's fresh, brand new. It's someone can use it. So there was somebody that I knew, Tamik Chacham, who let me tell you that when I opened their refrigerator, there's a bottle of water inside. Once I saw an apple. That's it. You have all those old salad dressings you never threw away, all those pickle jars you once... Nothing. Nothing. And I said, let me leave it for them. They told me the badatz that's on the food is a Sephardic hechsher, and they can't eat Sephardic shechita. And my heart broke. I'll tell you why. Because they don't know anything. It's not that they made it. Somebody told them it's better for them to die of starvation than to trust Sephardic rabbis to do shechita. Mind you, my in-laws ate from the food. My father-in-law is a pretty religious guy. I think he would agree with me on that. So how could it be? It could be that there's such a base hatred between people. Says the Sefer Brit, Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz says, you know, when you hate somebody, your next door neighbor, let's say, you hate them, it's not sinat chinam. You know why it's not sinat chinam? Because likely you have a good reason why you hate them. They parked in your grass once, or they looked over your fence one day, or their dog barked at you when you were getting an Amazon package. You hate them. Stupid reason, but at least you have a reason. But why do you hate somebody that's a different color than you? Why do you hate somebody because they speak a different language than you? Why does it bother you so much? Which normal people behave like that? And inside of Am Yisrael, I once had a class in my house. Back in the day, our Monday morning class, alav shalom. That class used to be inside of my house. And once it was a few minutes before the class started. And someone came to the shiur. They asked me a question in Hebrew. It was before my class started. And I answered the question in Hebrew. And one lady sitting at the table started screaming at the both of us. How dare you speak Hebrew? It's so rude. We don't understand what you're saying. No. You're in America. Speak English. I should tell her she's in America. She should learn how to speak Spanish at least. Learn how to speak a native language of the land of people you stole from. What do you mean to speak English? Do you have a monopoly over what language we're allowed to speak in this country? But I'm sure that those of you who've spoken other languages in public before have had someone tell you something about it. Because it's not just in my table that it happened. Why does it bother you so much that someone is different than you? HaRav Peretz always taught us that a person who is secure with what they believe doesn't really care who the person sitting next to them is. If you really knew that what you did was right, it wouldn't bother you the person sitting next to you feels differently than you. It wouldn't bother you if you took a picture with them, or you went on a vacation with them, or you had dinner with them. Because who's going to think that if a Talmid Chacham went to have dinner with a Roman Catholic priest, that he's converting to Catholicism? The chief rabbi in Rome, alav shalom, passed away last year. In his Beit HaKnesset is a throne for the Pope. Now, that's why I would never take a job as the chief rabbi of Rome, but that's his job. You can imagine that being in a job like that, you have to interact with so many different kinds of people. Yeah, I told you on Shabbat about Chief Rabbi Lau's book. All the different diplomats that he met and the heads of religions that he met. A normal person who's a big person knows how to have their truth and still interact with the rest of the world like normal people. And so I'm 2 sources away, or even 1 source away from finishing with you today. One rule HaRav Peretz would always repeat to us. The Torah says over and over and over again. The Torah says Torah echat, chukah echat, mishpat echad, one law, lager, le'ezrach, for the citizen, for the traveler through your place. Everyone follows the same rules. HaRav Peretz writes the following. That when you study Torah from people, it doesn't matter what kind of kippah they wear. It doesn't matter what kind of hat they wear. Rabbi Pinchas, he writes in his book that he asked his father about the, you know what shtreimels are? You know the fur hat? So now there's a new kind of shtreimels and fur hat. But the new shtreimels, they have like spikes on top of them. They became like double as tall. What are they called? They look like palm tree leaves. My wife's Rebbe, he once had some words to say about them. And the younger guys, they're all wearing these cool shtreimels now. Yeah? They brought back 1800 styles of fashion. It's now exciting. They once asked HaRav Peretz, which shtreimel he thinks? He said, who, this shtreimel, that doesn't matter, none of it matters. In fact, when HaRav Peretz at his house, they would do Birkat HaMazon, and all the yeshiva guys go get their hats and their jackets. He would just stay there like that. He said, you guys go focus on your clothing. I'm going to focus on saying Birkat HaMazon. That's always how he would answer this. What are you making such a big commotion about things that are so external? And this also, the friends that HaRav Peretz had, the Talmidei Chachamim that he was connected to, one of his grandchildren spoke to me this week and said he would like to put together once a year some kind of gathering of all the students of HaRav Peretz. I told him I'm interested in being there, but I have one request. I said, as I get to know over the years, and after HaRav Peretz passed, I've only got to meet even more of the people who learned Torah from HaRav Peretz. The one thing that I have found that is in common between all of them is that they know him. Aside from that, I would never choose all of these people to put them in a room together. HaRav Peretz had this power to bring together people and to give respect to people that other people would never be able to understand. Why do you consider that person to be so special? Because he saw in them something that was that special, and he really, really believed in them and really appreciated that about them. And he taught us to learn from everyone. And I told his grandson, if you want to put together such a convention, such a meeting, you have to find someone broad enough to be willing to accept all of the people that HaRav Peretz accepted also. Because most of us, we have our comfort zone and then what's outside of our comfort zone. You have to find someone big. And that brings me to my last pshat. I told you that word, Vatiha emet ne'ederet, that truth will be lost. HaRav Peretz always said there's a second meaning to it. See, bothered HaRav Peretz that people, the first pshat, that people are abandoning the truth. And so there is truth, but it's being abandoned. Because ultimately, if all the people abandon truth, what is there still truth? No, then the truth is gone. So, he said there must be a version of this teaching that can tell us that there is truth, but the truth is still lost. And how could it be so? Listen to this. I'm ending with this. It appears to me you should explain this teaching another way. That in the end of days, יתלכדו ויתחברו אנשי האמת, התורה והמצוות, כל כת וכת לעצמה. All of the Torah, God-fearing people, they will all gather together into their own little groups. וכל אחת סבורה ומחזיקה שהאמת וכל האמת מצוי רק אצלו. And every one of those little groups is convinced that I have the truth and nothing but the truth and nobody else has truth. ומבטלת ופוסלת כל הכתות האחרות. And they ultimately say all of the other Jews, they're all wrong, they're all bad, they're all horrible. ועל ידי זה מתרבה הפירוד והמחלוקת שאינה לשם שמיים. What ends up happening is all this fighting does not increase the honor of heaven. ושנאת חינם החמורה and baseless hatred וביזוי תלמידי חכמים and the denigration of Torah scholars. וממילא, and at the end, what happens? האמת הולך אליה ומסתלקת. Truth disappears. Why? Why? Everybody believes that I'm right. And if I'm right, there's nothing to learn from you. Then one, I'm keeping all the truth to myself. Because if I'm right, then I'm keeping all the truth to myself. Number two, you never have the opportunity to learn from anybody else. Anybody else. Because you live in this little echo chamber. That's just you. It's only you. Only you matter. When I was in Yerushalayim last week, got in a conversation with somebody who was always waiting to give me musar that I'm too close to HaRav Peretz. It's okay. It's okay. And they turned to me and said, could your rabbi ever be wrong? I said, of course my rabbi could be wrong. And if my rabbi were to be wrong, he would want me to tell him. Because emet, the truth, was more important to him than anything else, even with him being right. He'd rather be wrong and you correct him. And he would say, I'm wrong. He encouraged us to argue with him. He encouraged us to think about things differently than him. I said, but you know why you're asking me that? You're asking me that because you come from a world where in your mind, your rabbis are never wrong. And that's why all of this time, you can't learn anything from my rabbis. Because your rabbis are the only ones who are right. So I want to explain to you that whereas you say things on Tisha B'Av, which just was when I was in Israel, like Jewish unity and people talking about Jewish unity and Jewish unity, bakol mikol kol. Let's ask you a few honest questions. In our Kehillat, would we marry other Jews? Are there Jews that would not marry us? Absolutely. In our Kehillat, if we were to visit another Kehillat, would we eat their food? Are there Kehillot of people that would not eat ours? In our Kehillat, do we have on the bookshelves books of other Chachamim that we don't necessarily agree with or are students of? Yes. When we go to other Kehillot, are our books on their shelves? No. It's very simple. It's very easy to talk unity. It's very easy to talk achdut. It's very, very, very difficult to live that way. And I'm very grateful. I'm grateful that in this tiny corner of San Diego, and all the other corners that I see represented here on Zoom, and those that will inevitably watch it on YouTube, because for some of them it's the middle of the night. For some of you, it's almost the middle of the night. For some of you sleeping in the room, it already was the middle of the night. I judge you all favorably, right? Because I talk a lot. I know. A lot of shiurim. It's okay if you sleep through some of them. It's when you sleep through all of them. That's when I get worried. Baruch Hashem. I'm very grateful that we've managed to create this place, this physical place and the virtual space that is attached to it. A place where somebody was talking recently. It could be that we have more people connected to us in New York than we do in San Diego. It could be. San Diego is still the headquarters. More than that, San Diego is the proof of concept that you can get a bunch of people that are not all the same to be in the same community with each other and to be friends with each other and to love each other and to eat in each other's homes. And B'ezrat Hashem will do those weddings, but to marry each other's children. But for real, when we started this Kehillat, people wanted to put labels. We're Sephardic Kehillat. When we started at Bedin in Los Angeles, why don't you call yourselves Sephardic Bedin? I said, why would I call myself a Sephardic Bedin? I'm not just a Bedin for Sephardi. This Kehillat is not just for one type of Jewish person. Sure, is there a style to this Kehillat? Of course. Just like when I go to your house, there's a style to your house. It doesn't mean that I'm not welcome in your house. Everybody has a backbone. Everyone has some kind of direction they follow in their life. Unity does not mean chaos, but it means the ability to be truthful while also not abandoning Yosher and Tzedek, that which is righteous and that which is just. And I think we've done a pretty good job together. In the last 10 years or so, having the Kehillat, of building a Kehillat that is truthful, that knows what we believe in. We know what we don't believe in, but yet at the end of the day, we still love everybody. And we want everybody. And we want that which is good for everybody. I'm asking you, probably the greatest thing that you can do, Lulu Nishmat HaRav Peretz, is to recommit yourself to your truth. Discover what that is. Don't apologize anymore for doing Torah and mitzvot the way you know how to do them. Somebody called me recently and told me that you really do a disservice to the people in your Kehillat. Why? Because when they leave your Kehillat, they will not be prepared for the normal world that is out there. When they say normal world, what? On the contrary, the normal world, first off, I have to say, I really am hurt by the fact that you consider this not normal and that you consider that normal. I just want to make that very clear. But what do you mean? We have this Kehillat so people don't have to suffer the way they do in the normal world. I'm very grateful for that. Somebody once came here and said, the people that convert in your Bedin, they suffer. Why? Because you don't make them suffer enough. So come again. The person who told me that was a Ger Tzedek. They converted themselves. So when I converted to Judaism, they made me go through hell. And you're so nice to people. So you want that because you went through hell, we should also make... I'm sure that in my wife's profession, there's some kind of connection between the victim becoming the bully. I get it. That's crazy. I don't want people to have to live like that. That's why we do it. I don't want it to matter which kind of kippah you wear. So I showed someone a picture of myself and my children with HaRav Peretz. And Hanan was wearing a black kippah, and Avinom was wearing a knitted kippah. And some guy said, only you Americans can do that. I said, do what? To wear different kinds of kippot. So in my house, there's a basket. Now, it used to be. Now there's not a basket. There used to be a basket of kippot. And all the kippot in the house, they go there. It could be the black one, the brown one, the knitted one, the one that came from the bar mitzvah, the one from the koto, whatever kippot, they're all there in the basket. God forbid. And all of those kippot are going to be in the basket. And in the basket, whatever kippah my kid wants to wear, they can wear. What's the big deal? The fact that you make such a big deal over such trivial things, not you, that other people will make such a big deal, that someone has to think, what kind of kippah? By the way, even that kippah, when it walks to my bed, nobody says anything. They should, but they don't. Why? Because they're good people. And that's all we can do. The legacy that we can leave for HaRav Peretz is to make sure that normal Judaism that is truthful but full of peace survives. And so I told you already then, we're going to have a meeting. I don't know if it's this week or next week or very soon, about how we take this project that is Kehillat HaShamayim and Shiviti to bigger and better places. Because I know that especially now, in the absence of Morenu HaRav, that we need to do more than we ever did before. Because I can't rely on two things. I can't rely on him doing more because he cannot. And I cannot rely on him making more rabbis to work alongside and do more because he cannot. And so all of that falls on our shoulders. But it's not a bad thing. It's a very exciting thing. I'm very, very much looking forward to the future. And B'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach, I'm certain that we're walking into a new year now. It's a new year. They'll be full of berachot, of blessings, not just for us as a community, but for all of us personally. And I'm asking you, realize that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Torah of truth, because our God is a God of truth. And whenever you're learning Torah, the one question you have to ask yourself is what I'm learning, is where I'm learning. Is it truthful? Does it want truth? Does it allow for my truth? Does it allow for me to exist? If your answer is yes, you're in the right place. If your answer is no, keep moving till you find that place. And know that wherever that place is, we love you anyways. And B'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach, I pray that the neshama of Morenu HaRav Yaakov Peretz should have an Gan Eden, B'ezrat Hashem. He should find the menucha, he should find the rest that he didn't find in the last few weeks in his life. He should find it there. And that we should commit ourselves to following the path of a Kadosh Baruch Hu the way that he would have wanted us to follow. Thank you so much for learning Torah with me.